Hello and welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from TalkTV. So pop the kettle on, this is the Royal Tea. I'm Sarah Hewson. Coming up, there's Harry and Meghan drama as the pair are involved in what was described as a near catastrophic car chase. Plus, could the lights go out on Prince Andrew? And could Prince Harry be more popular than the King in the United States? Joining me to discuss all that and lots more are royal commentator and TalkTV regular Afua Hagan, royal commentator and TalkTV host Daisy McAndrew, and The Sun's royal editor Matt Wilkinson. Prince Harry, Meghan and her mother Doria were involved in a near catastrophic car chase involving the paparazzi on Tuesday night. The incident happened after the Duke and Duchess of Sussex left an awards ceremony in New York. This all emerged on Wednesday afternoon, Matt, with this very dramatic statement from the Sussex team of this relentless pursuit and what was described as a near catastrophic car chase. I don't know about you, but when I saw those words, my heart was in my mouth thinking, oh my goodness, what has happened now? Well,
yeah, absolutely, because what happened to Diana, or his mother obviously, but also Harry has said in the past that he fears history could repeat itself. The story's slightly unravelled over the next couple of hours. It was quite a hyperbolic statement that maybe the Sussexes put out, suggesting that it was near catastrophic. The police and official police sources and also some of the people involved have given slightly different stories. I mean, the thing for me is that it appears now that they've been treated like celebrities in America. They're being chased by paparazzi. It's quite clear that a chase did actually happen. They feel that they're in danger. I mean, I have enormous sympathy for them. You know, if they believe that they were in danger, then we need to, actually listen to them and understand it. But this would never happen in the UK. There are certain rules. We have press rules. They can't be chased. If they're telling us to go away, we go away. And they put this, sadly, they're in a situation where they're now in America, where they can be treated this way wrongly, by paparazzi.
And they left the United Kingdom to escape media intrusion. But actually what we saw unfold on Tuesday night, after they'd been at this big gala event and Meghan had accepted an award, was paparazzi chasing their vehicles.
Exactly, and we know from everything Harry said in the book and in the documentary that is his worst nightmare. As Matt said, he's said repeatedly that he wants to protect his family from exactly that. So he will have felt that he didn't protect his family from the thing that he's been wanting to protect them for. On the other hand, they could have just driven to the friend's house, wherever it was they were staying in Manhattan, and allowed the press to follow them. But they were determined, we know they were determined to shake off the paparazzi. They didn't want the paps to know where they were staying. So in some ways, it didn't have to be a 2-hour game of cat and mouse with the paps chasing them, if only they'd just sort of sucked it up. Some people would say, I know why they didn't. And also the point, Sarah, you were saying about the States, it is fascinating because the paparazzi in New York particularly say that the First Amendment says they can pretty much do whatever they want in pursuit of a story, in pursuit of their freedom of speech. Interestingly, in California, where Harry and Meghan actually live, there are much stronger rules about what the paps can and can't do, which were ironically brought in after the death of Princess Diana. So they would have been better protected if they'd been in California. But New York is a bit like the Wild West when it comes to paps.
And Harry spoke to a friend who was quoted saying that this was the closest he's come to feeling like he understood what happened to his mother in Paris in 1997, Afua.
This must have been very, very triggering for him to be pursued by the paparazzi in this way, in convoy, blacked out SUVs, making all these evasive maneuvers, going down streets, up streets, running red lights, going on the pavement. It must have been extremely triggering for him. Now, we know that we've heard from the taxi driver, they were in a yellow cab, that's the yellow cab they jumped in after, and they stopped at the 19th Precinct police station and eventually took that cab home, and there was less paparazzi following them by that point, which I think is why the taxi driver said they were perhaps calmer and there wasn't so many paparazzi following them. But it must have been extremely triggering. I mean, as Daisy said, New York is a bit like the Wild West with these paps. They definitely have less rules than they have in other parts of America. And also, let's remember, if you get shot of Harry and Meghan going into this apartment building that there was their friend's apartment they were staying at. They didn't want that person to be identified. Or if you get a shot of them with the children.
I want to know who that person was.
Oh yeah. If you get a shot of them with the children, that shot, that kind of money can pay for someone's college education for 4 years. That's the kind of money that the paparazzi want to make. Not so much them coming out of, you know, the event or
and
on a red
for the
carpet.
photos.
You know, it's those kind of paparazzi shots that they are desperate to get. So it must have been extremely triggering for him.
Absolutely. I have enormous sympathy for them, but nobody was going to use those pictures. The Sun, none of the papers, we said immediately, we're not going to use these pictures.
They did go on a website.
I was just going to say, one of the
Not
pictures
ours.
had already gone, not
They were used on social media, but the newspapers didn't use.
Daily Express and Daily Mail printed them and took them down pretty quickly. But you're right, you know, you guys didn't use them.
But of course, one of the problems as the story unravelled was people were saying this initial statement was over the top. The initial statement was suggesting, and it didn't say it was a high-speed car chase, but it was suggesting it was a very dangerous car chase. It said it went on for 2 hours, and people were saying, how could that possibly be possible? Then we had the statement coming from the police and from the mayor, which seemed to contradict the official Sussex line about how dangerous it had been and whether, you know, life had been in peril. And of course, then you get the whole toxicity of people who were pro or anti.
Well, I was
Harry
going to
and
say,
Meghan.
wherever you stood on the Sussexes before this, you still stand on it when it comes to this issue. You look at social media, views are pretty entrenched as to whether
and
this
people
is...
saying this was just for publicity, this was just because Harry's got that court case going against the Home Office, saying that he needs security. This, you know, they felt would have been strength to his elbow in that argument. I don't think that's necessarily fair, but you can see why people are jumping to that conclusion.
But the thing is, there's always going to be different perspectives as to what happened, which I think is fair. You know, you've got the taxi driver's perspective. You know, I read a piece from one of the paparazzi this morning who said he did fear for his life. They were going at 80 miles per hour.
But
you've
they
got the
said
NYPD.
that it was one of the security detail, one of the SUVs that was part of Harry and Meghan's convoy that was actually driving recklessly as well. So we've got all of these different
And
versions.
So everybody involved, you know, I think there was probably recklessness on all sides. Even if it went on from 1 hour 15 minutes or 2 hours, how did the NYPD allow it to go on for any stretch of time at all? We know that they were crisscrossing down 57th up FDR to try and elude the paparazzi. There was kind of a bit of a game of cat and mouse happening. But I don't think it should have been allowed to go on for that long.
I think that's right. And also don't forget the police in the States are more political, small p political, in that they will always want to come out with a statement to defend themselves. So I wasn't surprised to see the police saying it wasn't as dramatic as all that, because the police were partly responsible for the safety and, you know, the safe passage of the Sussexes. So of course they were going to come out saying...
Also everybody else around, not just the Sussexes, the pedestrians, the paparazzi themselves, everybody else who is on the streets and using the streets at the same time that this is going on. Of course the NYPD are going to play it down because it shouldn't have been allowed to happen in the first place.
But it's also important to see what Harry and Meghan were actually doing. They were attending a red carpet event for Meghan to pick up an award, which I'm not totally convinced it was anything more than a kind of vanity award, to be fair. I don't, you know, it was an event that they turned up, a red carpet event that they had advertised they were going to attend.
They didn't walk the red carpet though, did they?
They
walked through the car hire.
A car hire centre. But this wasn't, you know, this was them promoting themselves. It was a PR opportunity that attracted the paps. If they were there as working royals or doing something officially, you know, for a state or for the Queen, this stuff wouldn't happen. They've taken themselves out of the United Kingdom into America. You know, I think Harry said in his TV show that he spoke in Spare, saying they were fed to the wolves by the royal family here. They've leapt into a bear pit into America as celebrities, not operating as royals. And the rules have changed, the game's changed.
This is the thing, is that whether you are the Sussexes, whether you're King William, whether you're Angelina Jolie, you do not deserve to be pursued by paparazzi in that way at all. It doesn't matter who you are.
But there are big questions about the security plan. If you are getting a high-profile couple like Harry and Meghan out of a well-publicised event, you have a plan.
Well, yeah.
And does that plan involve driving up and down FDR Drive for an hour and a quarter because you want to throw them off, and then hailing a yellow cab to then take you away? I mean, it sounds crazy, really, doesn't it? It doesn't sound the most secure.
No, and we know
plans.
from reading Spare that Harry says he pays $6 million a year for his security. Well, I'm sorry, he didn't get his money's worth yesterday. He did it on Wednesday, because that looked like a very badly organised.
Made up on the hoof.
Look who they are. You've seen the security that they have. They have his old friend, who's not going to tell Harry no. He's known him for years. He's a former Met police officer. You've got Barack Obama's former bodyguard, who advertises online that he's Barack Obama's bodyguard, bit of a celebrity bodyguard. And they've just taken on Kim Kardashian's bodyguard. Are these the type of people that a royal couple should be protected with in America, or is it the kind of protection that celebrities are received when they're in America? And they need to look at their security team, personally, I think.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of questions about the NYPD handling of it as well. There's an awful lot of footage out there, isn't there? Because there are cameras everywhere in New York. Their photographs were being taken, they were being filmed. Harry was filming it himself.
Exactly. And that, I wonder when, if, how we're going to see that footage. I would be really interested to see that. You know, I have seen some of the footage online, I've seen some of the pictures online. You know, they haven't been widely used, which I think is a very good thing. But it does look like it was certainly very chaotic. But I want to see what Harry filmed.
One thing that struck me is, you know, we've talked a lot about whether or not they're still relevant. Well, look at the level of interest in them in the US, and look what happened when that statement was released. And, you know, it's front pages, it was top story. There are a lot of people still very interested in every move this couple made.
And I know that, you know, we probably all did some American networks when the story broke, and the interest in the States was huge, partly because it happened in the States, but also, as you said, because Harry and Meghan are big news. But I was very interested. It felt to me, and obviously this is only anecdotal, it felt to me like the American public wasn't, or certainly the journalists weren't as sympathetic as they would have been a year or so ago, which I felt was interesting, that there was more scepticism about the Sussex statement. Is that because this was happening in the US? I think it was. I think it was. I think people saying, you know, Harry has beef with British journalists and British media and British tabloids and paps, but now he's sort of attacking our paps and our society, and it just felt like there was a little bit of a shift.
We're
there.
Not so bad now, are we? The British press. We're not so bad. I mean, those scenes would never happen in the UK. They don't happen to Kate and William, and they don't happen to Harry and Meghan when they've come over for 3 or 4 jobs in the last couple of years.
Let's talk about Kate now, and she was out and about this week for Mental Health Awareness Week. She spoke about learning to be a royal and bringing up children with different personalities on a visit to a youth charity. This was a conversation that took place privately at Matt. She was talking to young people as she was attending a charity supported by Dame Kelly Holmes.
Yeah, correct. So she's doing a couple of engagements this week to mark Mental Health Awareness Week, which is really important to both of them, Prince and Princess of Wales. And she went to a school and she worked with some young children who have been working on their mental health. And she had a private conversation with these children where she expressed how difficult it was becoming a member of the royal family, because she had a very difficult time, you know, when she was dating William and then also learning the game. And one of the issues we understand is public speaking, because she's quite shy. When we see her, she seems very confident, but she's been on a massive journey in that ability to struggle with her own mental health to actually be able to stand up. And now we see her make speeches, appear on television, play the piano at Eurovision,
yes,
you know, things like that. And she was speaking about how she's developed, telling these young people in the glare of the media and while getting involved in the royal family, about how she's managed to develop her own confidence. And I think they were very impressed by that.
And it was human, wasn't it?
It did sound very human. And I think she was asked, you know, words to the effect of, you know, did you want to be a royal? And she was like, well, I just fell in love. But then I had to work out how to do this job. And she was talking apparently about making sure that her children have defined roles and understand what's going to be expected of them and find something fulfilling. And it is interesting, if we think back to what she was like or how she was portrayed at the beginning, it was all weighty Katie, you know, those awful nicknames. And it was all about, you know, how quiet she was. And she, as Matt said, she is quite shy, but she is so much more confident. I mean, I don't really like the constant use of body language experts and all that, which, you know, the royals are always subjected to, but sometimes there is something in them. And some of those so-called experts are saying that she is just holding herself in a much more confident way these days. She's projecting herself as very, very confident, and she's using her voice, which we didn't hear for a long time.
And as Matt mentioned, using her piano skills on Eurovision, a huge platform played, and we're also getting more insight, these behind the scenes films that we're getting more and more access from Kensington Palace.
Yeah, definitely. Those very slick videos, very well put together videos that we saw over the coronation. You see them sort of getting ready, getting into the car, you know, Kate hitching up her dress and then going to the coronation concert.
Delight on the children's faces.
Exactly. And I think, you know, these are really well put together. Really well done. It gives people just enough. You never hear them speak as well, which I think is very cleverly done. It's always with some nice music. So yeah, I think that they are doing a really good job of giving people just enough, keeping people on the hook so they will go back for more, because it's a very fine line that you want to tread. You don't want to give people too much, because you still want to have a little bit of mystique around the family, a little bit of mystique around the royals. And I think they are doing that really well. Well, the PR team are anyway.
I do think it's interesting when you look at how things have changed just in the last few months, as you know, we get used to, you know, the Caroline age, the King Charles age, and the King Charles age is all about William and Kate. I mean, that's the bottom line. And you know, I've said this before, but it's becoming very obvious how they're planning on managing that, with Charles as a sort of chairman figure and William as a sort of CEO figure.
Well, they're kind of far more glamorous, aren't they?
And yet, I thought that where Kate shone at the coronation, she managed to do that without ever stealing the limelight. It's a very delicate balance to strike.
It is, but the limelight was centred very much on the four of them.
Yes.
Deliberately so. So it wasn't like she was stealing the limelight. She was being put in the spotlight.
And let's bring you up to date with the latest on the Windsor Mansion merry-go-round now. Prince Andrew is refusing to leave his residence at Royal Lodge, it's been claimed. He allegedly fears the royal family might switch off essentials such as gas, water and electricity to get him out of the home he has lived in since 2003. What do we think? Could King Charles really turn out the lights?
Of course, we know that will never happen. That Andrew says he wants to stay for the duration of the 55-year lease. And like I've said before, Prince Andrew, you really need to read the room. And at this very instance, look, your allowance of £250,000 or however much it has been cut. You cannot afford to stay there. And it's not like King Charles is kicking him out onto the streets. He's offering him Frogmore Cottage to go and live there. Just go quietly into the night. I think the constant complaining about, you know, he wants to stay at Royal Lodge and he's going to live out the lease and please don't cut off the electricity. It's not like British Gas are going to come around and put on a prepayment meter. You're not living in a cost of living crisis. Like, read the room. He sounds like a spoilt child. It's either Frogmore Cottage or a granny flat above a Pizza Express. Pick one and just go quietly.
And Frogmore Cottage, the name a little misleading because it's by no means a cottage, is it, Matt?
No, it's vast, and it's going to be empty very soon, even if it's not now. I mean, I don't know, the government have recently changed the law, haven't they, saying that you can't evict people from houses for no reason.
No fault evictions.
No fault evictions. So possibly.
The Duke of York might have been studying the legislation very closely.
They brought that legislation in just as Prince Andrew's been evicted.
But I guess one solution is Andrew could move into Buckingham Palace because nobody else wants to live there, do we?
It's true.
We know that Charles is turning his nose up at it. I can kind of understand why. Clarence House is very nice, but it does sound like nobody's going to end up at Buckingham Palace. So
have they offered Harry and Meghan an apartment in Buckingham Palace?
I think if Harry and Meghan, they can use St James's Palace.
Right.
But Charles and Camilla, they started their marriage in Clarence House. That's very much their home, and it's only a short journey. Buckingham Palace will be an office. Andrew's been kicked out of there as well, by the way.
It's mid-renovation still, isn't it?
Yeah, under Charles's reign, I can't see him moving into Buckingham Palace, but St James's Palace is there. That can be used for Harry and Andrew.
But on Buckingham, they've been drip-feeding this idea for a while, haven't they, that it could become some sort of, you know, all-year-round museum.
People's Palace, more of a gallery or, yes.
The only trouble with that is we have a lot of museums and they're quite expensive to run. So you know, would the royal family assume that then the government would pick up, you know, the taxpayer would pick up the full running costs of Buckingham Palace if it was a public building? It does present some other difficulties, but yes, where Andrew ends up, who knows? And it is, I mean, it's a stunning house, Royal Lodge, vast, stunning house that he's been in for 20 years. And let's not forget, with Fergie as well.
Yeah.
It needs a lot of work done, Royal
Yes.
Lodge. I mean,
It needs a new roof, doesn't it?
It needs a new roof. It's got damp. It needs renovation, and it's big enough maybe for a family of 5 that just lived in Windsor. That maybe need some wider grounds to run around in,
Right.
but not yet. But
And of
maybe
course,
in the
Windsor
future.
Castle is still empty. So there's another. I mean,
And Balmoral.
That's a lot
Yeah.
of buildings sitting empty.
Balmoral's going to be, is that not going to be turned into a museum as well? There's been talk about that.
Yes, there has been talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's go back to talking about Prince Harry, because he has been named as America's favourite royal, beating King Charles, who trails way down the list. That is according to a recent survey in the United States, which questioned some 7,000 Americans across 36 states. It contradicts, doesn't it, Daisy, many of the reports and the polling that we've had coming out of the US that their popularity has plummeted there since Netflix and Spare.
I don't know if it necessarily does contradict it, because I think he could still be the most popular and not be as popular as he used to be. And actually, I thought the most interesting thing about this poll was that Meghan was so far down. You would assume that Harry and Meghan would be would come as a pair, but actually Harry was first, then Kate, then William, then Meghan. Meghan on 18%, practically half what Harry was on. So I thought it was very interesting that Harry was as popular as he was, but equally interesting that Meghan was so far down the poll.
How much do we read into these various polls? Because each one comes up with a different
It does,
result,
and it
doesn't
probably
it,
just
Matt?
depends on what's been in the news the last couple of weeks. But ultimately, Harry could potentially be a very likeable man. He was when he was in the UK. When he's Harry and he's fun Harry and he's not grumpy and just moaning about things. He's a young guy who's fought in the army. He's taken his family to America out of love and protection of his family. There are things that you can really appreciate
He's done
about
great
Harry.
work with Invictus.
Exactly. You know, if he did think, you know, maybe the Americans are looking at it and thinking there are positive aspects to this lad. You know, there are ways for him to move forward. That's what I want to see out of Harry, is to, you know, the old Harry, but, you know, working in America and doing something good. Maybe that's what they're looking at.
I wonder if that is what we're starting to see unfold, and what part of the plan was from Meghan with accepting this award in New York. This is all about them projecting a more serious image, a very professional image. There she was as a kind of in a stateswoman type role.
Well, the poll did say that that people thought or put Harry is more popular because of the charitable works that he does, because of the philanthropy and things like that. So maybe that is giving him a bit of a positive boost, and maybe that is them what they're trying to pivot and do. But I think that's kind of what they've always wanted to do. After they've done the projects where they've talked about them being in the royal family, the projects from now on are going to be about their work, their philanthropy work, what they're going to do with Archwell. That's what's coming up. You know, we've got Invictus coming up as well in Germany. You're going to have Team Nigeria there for the very first time. You know, we've got all these great things that are coming up, and I think that's what they want us to focus on going forward.
Meanwhile, Matt, we should touch on, Harry still has a number of legal cases going on here in the United Kingdom that are a real focus, including about his security, and you were in court for that this week.
Yeah, it was meant to last for an hour. It dragged on all day because it was really important issues. Harry wants to pay for armed protection while in the UK, because that was taken away when him and Meghan stepped down as royals. Home Office, the police, the RAVOC, royal household all say no, and the court case is really interesting.
RAVOC, which is Royal Protection.
It's the
committee that decides.
It's a committee that decides whether it's within the public interest and right to spend resources on individuals, and they say no. And I've got to admit, and I say enormous sympathy for what happened in New York, but it felt very arrogant for Harry to suggest that the Met Police are wrong, that all the experts are wrong, and that he should be able to pay for his own bodyguards. And the Met Police came out so strongly in that court case to say, we tested it very strongly, and we decided not in the public interest. If we agree to give you some security, that means that other more deserving people don't get it. And it also means it opens up the door as a precedent for any, if they are celebrities or anybody who's rich enough from the Middle East or Russia, to just say, well, Harry's bought some police, I want to buy some police. And also, it's illegal to do it on public land or private land. So I thought it was weird that it came a day before his car incident. But the way I saw it from the judge was indicating that he didn't particularly think Harry had a case to be able to pay for security, and I think we'll get an answer in the next couple of days or the next couple of weeks.
I mean, we've got to be able to find some middle ground with this. There's got to be a reason why Harry feels so strongly that the Metropolitan Police are the best way to protect him and his family. So even if the Metropolitan Police say, you know, this is a dangerous president, which it probably could be, because like you say, if Harry says I've bought police, then, you know, you could have anybody else saying,
we could.
I want to do the same thing. Perhaps it's about the sharing of intelligence. Perhaps that's what he feels his security is lacking or needs to be able to stay on top of any threats that his family may come under. So that I really hope we can find a middle ground where perhaps information can be shared to make sure that Harry can be able to have the proper level of security that him and his family require.
Now, it's been reported that Disney's new Little Mermaid movie is making a dig at the Princess of Wales. In the scene where Ariel and Prince Eric meet after she's given up her voice to get to the surface and he has to try to guess her name. His first guess is Diana. His second guess is Catherine. But after Ariel gives a disgusted reaction, he says, OK, definitely not Catherine. Too much of a coincidence? Afua, I'm going to turn to you because you've seen it.
I have seen it.
Meghan has talked about this movie before as resonating with her. In order to be with her prince, she had to lose her voice.
Yeah. I must admit, when I saw that bit, I was like, oh, that's weird, isn't it? Had a little chuckle to myself. I would like to say that it's just too much of a coincidence, but I feel like I can't. It was a very funny moment.
I think it's a deliberate, it's a deliberate dig.
I wouldn't like to say yes and I wouldn't like to say no. I mean, the fact
not like you to sit on the fence there.
I mean, the fact that it was Diana and Catherine, I was like, that's
Diana's
pretty
in the
odd.
Original movie, isn't
Yeah.
it? But not Catherine. That's
and to be honest, does she give that much of a disgusted look? It's not like she's like, oh, my name would never be Catherine. I think it was just because it's quite far from Ariel. It's a great film, though. I will say that.
I don't know why I'm turning to you for the Little Mermaid analysis.
I can't believe they're remaking it. I'm a big fan of the cartoon. You know, that was original.
Let me tell you that you will love this even more.
Okay, don't give anything away. But it feels a bit naughty, doesn't it?
Well, it does particularly. I mean, not only has Meghan talked about the Little Mermaid before, but of course she has a relationship with Disney.
Yes, she does.
So it seems to me that this is no coincidence. It can't be. I mean, it did make me think of that. I don't know if we've got time. Do you remember when she went to the premiere of The Lion King and there were all those stories about the cast members telling her that they were
like Mandela moments.
Yes, that they adored her and they were weeping in the streets when she got married, which was all rather poo-pooed. So she does have a funny old relationship with Disney films and stories.
Well, that is all we've got time for this week. My thanks to Afua, Daisy and Matt. If you want to join in with the debate, make sure you leave a comment. We will be back next week with all of the latest on the royal family. We hope you can join us. We'll see you then.